over 2 protests a day in South Africa, according to the Institute for Security Studies. Protest action, often cynically referred to as our 12th official language. Is that because it's the only one government understands? The majority of times citizens take to the streets. It's completely peaceful, but sometimes things can become destructive. Let's welcome back Ndithini Thyido from the Khayelitsha Development Forum to find out what he thinks of community protests. Ndithini, thank you so much for joining us again. You know, just a few weeks ago at the end of September, we had residents from Khayelitsha protesting lack of service delivery. Not the first time that they've protested. Do the protests actually work? Do we see any change, any movement from the officials who are meant to be guaranteeing service delivery?
Good morning, and good morning to your viewers as well. Look, what we are seeing really is a lack of civic education in our communities, because the people of Khayelitsha, for instance, and in the case of Cape Town, they've got in 2 weeks' time, they've got a bigger opportunity than just protestation, to protest by way of voting out anyone they believe is not servicing them. You see, in other space, vote to the maximum to make sure that their vote. In the case of Cape Town, you find that every day there must be a protest about things that people talk about. The colleague in Danone is making reference to the lie that communities have been educated. It can be a matter of a box ticking kind of exercise where you say you would have educated a community about not dumping things. For instance, not dumping things inside the drains. The issue of the environment in areas where for instance, Khayelitsha is a group of wetlands as an area itself. There's never been, or nobody can show you a document that teaches that community about the preservation, the environmental preservation in that area. For instance, as much as we've got a sea of shacks there are also other environmental necessities that we keep up. But the question is, for a poorer person, what do you keep? Do you want to preserve the frogs against your kids? Now, when we want to talk about social justice, there must be no scapegoating.
Ndithini, you speak about the opportunity that residents of Khayelitsha have in a few weeks to stage a bigger protest through their votes. Do you think that with the protests we've seen, we are going to see some electoral consequences? Or has the lack of service delivery led to more apathy?
In fact, what we are seeing is a lack of civic education. We must also ask and answer the question whether the IEC is doing enough to educate South Africans about the importance of voting as one means of protestation.
All right, Ndithini, let's speak about a successful protest. Do you think there is such a thing as a successful protest, and what are the hallmarks of one such protest?
One such protest, my brother, would be South Africa. South Africa is an outcome of a successful protest. The black people and the Africans in particular in South Africa have protested against a repressive system of governance to a point that was achieved, freedom was achieved. So yes, we've got an example of a successful protest. But what is not right is for the initiators and the leaders of protests to take for granted the criminal element that from more times than none would hijack a genuine people's protest with criminal elements, where there would be physical harm on innocent people, damage to property that is used by the same communities. Those are still matters that require civic education on how to manage genuine and just protests.
Final question, Ndithini, I've got about 30 seconds left. Do you think with protests becoming so prevalent, they've lost their bite a little bit?
There's no way where a protest will ever lose its bite, my brother. For as long as injustice exists, there will always be protest.
All right, Ndithini Thyido from the Khayelitsha Development Forum, thank you so much for your time.